Sorry for the delay. We will get started momentarily. All right, looks like finally we are online here. Awesome. Okay, so if you're just joining us, welcome to this week's Divi use case live stream. Today we'll be showing you how to create a segmented circular menu in Divi. And to do this, we'll be using, some Divi blurbs in some creative ways. So let's go ahead and jump in and get started. Please let us know if my audio is coming in with a thumbs up. Make sure you can hear me. All right. And I'm going to jump in and get started. If you can, looking at the screen here, you can see I have a pre-made layout with the menu already added. If you notice, it's at the bottom of the page here. So if I click on it, you can see it pop up there. There's the menu. As you can see, when I hover over each of the segments, it has a nice hover effect. This would be a pretty creative way to display a menu on your page, and it would work well on desktop and mobile. Let me just go ahead and, zoom in on it a bit more so you can see. So there's my menu button here. So when I click on it, you can see it expands the segments here. And these are all created using Divi Blurbs and using the transform skew and then hiding the overflow. So it's pretty creative. I really like it. I think you'll enjoy it. And let's go ahead and jump in and get started. All right. I'm going to get started. So really the only thing you need is Divi. We're going to be using all of the built-in Divi settings with some external CSS and a small bit of jQuery to get that clickable action there on the menu. But overall, this is all we need is Divi. So let's go ahead and jump in. I'm creating it on the front end here. So I'm going to be adding a new row to get started to my default section here. And then I'm going to create a single column or one column row. And actually, before I start adding any blurbs, I'm going to style my row first. And the row is basically the main container for all of my blurbs that are going to make up the menu. So this is our main container. And I'm going to go ahead and jump into my row settings. I'm going to give it a background color. It's going to be this nice purple background color that matches the pre-made layout pack I'm going to be using later on. All right, let me move this over here. Let's see. And then my gutter width, let's go ahead and go to my gutter width, and I want to make it 1. If not, we're going to have some default margins under each one of those blurbs, and we don't want that. So I'm just going to take out all the margins with a gutter width of 1. Then I'm going to make the width, give it a custom width of 30 EM. That would be a length unit relative to the text font size. Right now it's taking the, because a row doesn't have in Divi, a row doesn't have the option of declaring a font size, but it just pulls from your default body text of the theme, which is currently at 14 pixels. So basically 30 EM is, relative to those 14 pixels. All right. Let's go with our gutter width. Okay, we got that. Let's do our height to match. So we want it to be square. So I'm going to do height to be 30 EM as well. And so I have a nice square that's going to allow me to, create a circular shape. And before I do that, I'm going to go to my spacing. And let's take out that default padding in there. So I'm going to set my top and bottom to 0 padding. All right, let's go over to the design tab, and we are already there, but let's continue on and go to our our border options. And under the rounded corners, this is where I make my element circular. Just give it a 50% all the way around, and that'll make it nice and circular. And then I want to make a box shadow. So this is my box shadow. I'm just gonna give it this one here. It's an outer box shadow. It's very subtle, but one thing to mention here as far as the box shadows are concerned, in Divi, if you do add a box shadow to something, at least I know for sure it does it on the outer box shadow, that it creates already it hides the overflow. So for example, under the advanced tab, if you go to visibility and you see these settings, horizontal overflow and vertical overflow, you can hide the overflow by selecting hidden for both of those, but it automatically does that when you set a box shadow. So I say that because it is important to this design that we hide the overflow. So if for some reason you add the box shadow and it doesn't do it, or it doesn't hide the overflow, you'll want to go into the advanced tab and do it there under the visibility vertical and horizontal overflow. And all right, so continuing on, let's go ahead and save those row options. We're going to come back to that row option or the row settings later on. But for now, that's sufficient. We're going to start adding our blurbs. So let's go ahead and click on the gray plus icon here, and let's add our first blurb. All right, as you can see, the overflow is hiding, so that's a good sign. Let's go down and let's take out this default title. I'm just going to put the word link in for the title just as a mock content. And I'm going to take out the body text. And I'm going to select, instead of the image, I'm going to use an icon. All right, so the icon can be anything. I think I'm using this little pie chart because it kind of goes along with the theme and the design, kind of resembles a pie chart. And then let's go ahead and add a background color. And this background color is going to be a shade darker than the background color of the row. And that's so you can see kind of the segment a little clearer. Let's go ahead and do a background color on hover as well. So deploy my hover option, go to my hover tab, and let's make it a dark gray, almost black, so you can really see the change. And then we can go to our icon color. Let's go to our design tab under image and icon. Let's set the icon color to white. Let's use the icon font size, which we'll set to 40 pixels. It's a good clickable size there. And I'm actually going to change that on tablet. So cut it down just a tad to 30 pixels on tablet. All right. Let's make sure and put my alignment, my text alignment to center so I can see my link text there. We can go ahead and change that title link or color, text color, to white. And all right, that's looking good. Let's go ahead and change the font though as well. Make it, I think I have, yeah, this Archivo narrow here. Don't have a lot of room to work with inside those segments, so I'm using a narrow font for the text there. In fact, you could actually choose not to have any text at all. If you want to make it a simple icon menu, you can do that. All right. And I see we have some comments. I'm going to get to those in a moment. Just let me get through this first blurb here. Okay. So I got my font. And let's look at the font style. Let's make it all caps and or all uppercase. And for the text size, let's go ahead and make it, instead of 18 pixels, we're going to shrink it down to 14 pixels. And then on tablet, let's go ahead and make it 12. So really small. So that's going to be on your mobile devices. All right, that takes care of that. Now we're going to position our blurb here. And this is crucial because we want to get it to basically to have the bottom right corner of our blurb module to be in the center of the circle. And so there's a few things you need to do to make that happen. First, we're going to go to the Advanced tab under Custom CSS. Under the main element, we're going to add a position of absolute. And also, we're going to position it 50% from the top and 50% from the left. That will give you kind of central location until we go in and change the width of our blurb. So I'm setting it up under with that custom CSS to be absolute. And then I'm going to go back to my design settings. Then I'm going to go to my sizing. I'm going to give it a width. I'm going to use these EM length units. So I'm going to do 15 EM on the width, and then the same on the height, 15 EM. All right, so there we go. And now, remember, I want the bottom right corner in the center. Right now, it's the left corner. So what I'm going to do is use margin, a left margin, to bring it over the same width of the module, so negative 15 EM. All right, so now my bottom right corner of my blurb is directly in the center. Looks like it is, so we're good. All right, so now let's go over to our transform options. All right, so before I do that, let me jump over to my comments here. All right. We have a comment, is Divi from Yaman. Is Divi really better than Elementor in terms of flexibility? I'm probably biased, but it seems to be really flexible, and maybe someone else can chime in. Always looking for helpful feedback there. Crazy Cow says, nice. All right, loving it. Let's see. And all right. Sukesh is, I think, giving us some instructions there to make a blurb. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. That was in response to Marcel. Okay, how to make a blurb. Very good. Thanks for that, Sukesh. Let's look over here. All right, we're good on comments. Right now, we're ready to jump in and do the transform option. This is where it's going to get pretty crazy. So if you're just joining us, I do want to welcome you to this week's Divi use case live stream. We're actually doing on a different day. It's normally Tuesdays. Apologize for the confusion you may have had there, but today we are creating a beautiful segmented circular menu in Divi. And don't forget to check the video description for more info on this use case. Also, there's a link to the blog post that goes along with this use case that you'll want to check out. And of course, if you don't have Divi yet, there's a link to the product page to check more about Divi as well. So let's go ahead and get back started. I'm excited to get into these transform skew options here. So you may not have used these before. Let's see. Um, this is right here is the transform skew, and this will allow us to get that segmented shape on our blurb. Let's go ahead and add a 60-degree skew along the x-axis down there. So I'm just going to enter 60. You can see it's already starting to resemble a segment over here. And so that's looking good. But to get it in the center, to get that point in the center of the circle, I'm going to have to change the transform origin, or the origin from which the transformation happens, or the transform skew happens. Let's go ahead and make it bottom right. So I'm going to click bottom right, and there you go. You can see that now the point is in the center of the segment, and because of my overflow is hidden, it now looks like a nice piece of a pie, right? Like a pie chart almost. So that's what we're looking for, and that's going to make up our blurb section, our menu clickable space there. But of course we have a problem because our content, our blurb content is now being hidden over here somewhere. So we're going to have to reverse our skew on the blurb content so that it becomes visible again. And I'll show you how to do that with some custom CSS in a moment. So let's go ahead and go to our blurb content CSS. So I'm going to go over to my advanced tab under custom CSS. We already have this one here to position our blurb, but we're going to go down to the one that says blurb content. So that's the including the icon, the title text, body text, all that would be our blurb content. And we're going to add this CSS here. And this is going to basically reverse what we did on the actual blurb module. And it's going to magically, put it back into position. As you can see, the skew here, I don't know if you can see it, but the transform skew is set to -60 degrees as opposed to what the blurb was set to 60 degrees. So that's kind of one of the ways we unskew it. And then we have to basically position the blurb content so that it lines up nice and centered inside of the skewed blurb module. All right, so our link is text underneath the icon, has a bit too much space, so I'm just going to add underneath my blurb image, there's some default margin. I'm just going to take that out, some bottom margin. I'm just going to set it to 15 pixels because we want some, just not a whole lot. There's too many T's in the word bottom there, so there we go. That brought it up a bit. So now it looks nice and balanced. And that takes care of our first blurb. So I do want to make sure and hide the overflow though. So I'm going to go back up here and go to my visibility options. And I want to hide the overflow because right now, even though you can't see it, the blurb content clickable space, or the space is kind of big, and we want to basically make that unclickable. So we want to hide it. If not, it wouldn't get the functionality we want. So I'm going to set overflow, horizontal overflow to hidden, and also vertical overflow to hidden, and that'll do it. So that takes care of my first blurb, and you can see how the blurb kind of looks actually, but then how it's hidden behind the actual row. So that's pretty cool. I'm gonna save it, and just so we can see what it looks like on the front end or on the live page, so you can see when I hover over it, it's working beautifully with my hover effect, and I'm not getting any extra hover space around the blurb there. So we're good. And at this point, we just have to duplicate these blurbs a total of 6 times, or actually 5 times, to get a total of 6 segments, because right now we are aiming for a half circle of segments. And right now our blurb modules are at 30 degrees intervals. So if I wanted to duplicate it here, I could, although it's kind of getting into, a bit, since we're starting to overlap things, it's probably best to just go ahead and go to the wireframe view mode to do this. So that's what I'll do. I'm just going to pull my menu settings to the center, and then I'm going to click on wireframe view mode. Could also, well, yeah, let's continue. So now I have my blurb here. I'm going to go ahead and duplicate it. And I'm just going to call this blurb 2 so we're not confused. Call this blurb 1. And on blurb 2, I'm going to open up the settings. And I'm actually going to toggle back the visual builder or desktop view. And I'm going to go to my design tab. Right now it's being hidden behind this blurb because they're positioned absolutely. But I'm going to go to my transform options, and I'm going to add a rotation here. So the rotation, I'm going to do it in 30-degree increments. That'll allow me to have 6 segments along here because of math. And I wanted to keep it simple, so didn't want to get into some weird degrees. So I'm just going to do 30 degrees. That's going to actually rotate it, and because we're coming from this center origin here, it's going to rotate it along clockwise, and now we have a new segment in the position that we want it to be in. I'm going to go to content, and I'm going to change the background color back to the lighter purple because I want to alternate those. All right, so that takes care of that one. Go back to my wireframe view, duplicate my blurb number 2. Let's call it blurb number 3. And then let's open up the settings. Go back to desktop view. And then I'm going to go to my transform options, increase my degree by 30 degrees up to 60 degrees. And then change that background to the darker version. All right, looking good. Let's go back to wireframe view, duplicate blurb 3. All right, rename it to blurb 4. Let's open up the settings, desktop view. Let's go to my transform options, and let's rotate it. Increase another 30 degrees along the clockwise up to 90 degrees. Save it. Oh, forgot to change my background color, so let's do that. Go to my recent colors there. All right, get the lighter version. All right, so you understand the system. So I'm just going to continue on in the background here in the wireframe view mode. So I'm duplicating blurb number 4. Let's go ahead and rename it here, blurb 5. And then let's rotate it up to 120 degrees. Change the background color. And let's duplicate it one more time. There's our blurb number 6. Open settings. I guess we can go ahead and change the background view here first. And let's increase that rotation to 150. Again, by 30-degree increments. So we're increasing it by 30 degrees with each blurb. And save it. Let's go ahead and deploy desktop view. It's looking good. And save it again. Refresh. This is what it looks like on the live page. All right. So we're at a good stopping point there to look and see if we have any questions. Thanks for chiming in. on the question about Elementor versus Divi. Always a good discussion. Let's see if we have any questions pertaining to our tutorial here. All right, so good question by RJ. Will all this custom CSS get wiped out if you update and are not using a child theme? The answer is no. No, this Divi has a actually does this for you. It creates static CSS from all the code that you add inside, like Divi modules or inside the theme customizer, things like that. So all the custom CSS you add in the Divi theme or in the Divi builder will get saved on updates, and will get, there's a way that it creates a static page, so it speeds it up for you. Yes, it will do what you want it to do, if that answers your question. Let's see. All right, so Jake says no, but it will if you delete the module. Yes, so if you delete the module, obviously it will delete the CSS. So if you wanted to, you could, target all of this with an external child style sheet in your child theme, if you want to do that. But as long as you keep everything, all the modules on the page, it will stay there. All right, very cool. So Crazy Cow asks, could we have the JSON export file? I did include that in the blog post that went out today, so go ahead and check our blog for that. And you can download the JSON file to see this in action on your own site. All right, good question. Barb laughed because I said because of math. Yes, that is the reason, because of math. All right. Let's continue on. Let's see. All right, so our next step will be, after we rotated all of our blurbs into their, correct position, we need to create our menu button. So to do that, we're actually going to use an entirely new section. So I'm going to add a new regular section, add a 1-column row, and in that row, I'm going to add another blurb module. And then let's update those settings. So I'm just going to use the icon. So I'm going to take out the title, take out the body text, and I'm going to select to use an icon. And I'm going to use the plus icon, so wherever that one is. Yes, there it is. So there's my plus icon down there. Let's go ahead and create a icon color. Let's go to my image and icon settings. Change that to white. Sorry, not white. Change that to a darker color. It can be anything you want. I'm just keeping it simple for now. A dark gray. And then use the icon font size. Yes. I'm going to change that to, let's do 50 pixels. And let's go ahead and add, get rid of that animation. Don't really need that animation, so I'm going to get rid of that. All right, let's go back to my blurb. Clicked out of it. And then I'm going to go to the advanced custom CSS, take out that bottom margin, that default bottom margin that is added underneath the blurb. Same thing we did for those other blurbs in the menu. So this time I'm going to set it to 0 pixels. All right, and that takes care of our blurb. So I'm going to save that. And let's go ahead and open up our row settings. I'm going to take out the default padding that exists there, change it to 0 on the top, 0 on the bottom. Let's give it Let's save that out and let's go to our section. So we're actually going to shrink the entire section to create our button. So I'm going to do the width, make it 100 pixels. And let's go ahead and do the same on the height so we can make it a circular button. Let's get rid of our padding, top and bottom padding. Set those top and bottom to 0 pixels. Let's go ahead and add our rounded corners of 50% to make it circular. Can't really see it yet because it's all white, but you will when I add the box shadow. Let's add that box shadow. Now you can see it over there in the corner. And so now we just need to position it. And you can see that the icon is at the top portion of my circular section there, or a circular button. That's because I'm going to position it in the bottom center of my my screen or my window. Same goes for the menu. So remember, we're going for this effect here. So you can see as my I'm only showing the top portion of the circle, and the same for the menu button. So all right, let's go back and position it with that absolute position, much like we did for our individual blurbs there. We're going to do that for this entire section. So I'm going to go to Advanced tab, Custom CSS, and let's go ahead and add it to the main element. Paste in my code there, and it's actually right down there. You can see it right at the bottom of my screen. And before I leave my section, I do want to add a custom CSS class. I'm going to call this class transform target. This is just going to be my my button that's going to open and close or expand and collapse that menu when I click on this section. So that's why I need that custom class there, so I can target it with my jQuery in a bit. So I'm going to save this out. And oh, one more thing. Open up those settings, section settings again. I do want to add a custom z-index of 12. This will make sure it sits above any page content. So that's important. Make it the z-index 12. So save that out. And let's go back to our circular menu here. I'm going to position this one at the bottom as well. So to do that, I'm going to open up my row settings. So open my row settings, go to my advanced tab, go to custom CSS, and under the main CSS, main element CSS, I'm basically going to position it with very similar code that we did our button down there. So, because I want it right down there with my button, and you can see it's now positioned nicely at the bottom. Basically, I positioned it as fixed, and I gave it a negative bottom position so that I can see only the top portion of my circle. All right, so that takes care of that. I do want to give it a custom z-index, so I'm going to go to my visibility, change that to 11 because I do want it to be behind my button, but I want it to be above the rest of the content on the page. And I do want to add a CSS class. I'm going to call this one has transform, and this will be the class that I target my transformation, which I'm about to add on click with jQuery. So, and one of the cool things about this is that you can actually, let's go back to my design settings for my row, and I'm going to add a transform scale to my row. And So what I'm going to do is I'm going to design the transform that I want to take place. And then I'm going to toggle it on and off with that button. So right now I want the default state to be actually only 1% scale for my row. All right. And so that is, yeah, I think that's correct. Make sure. Oh, you know what? I'm doing transform translate. Sorry, guys. It's supposed to be scale, not transform translate. So I clicked the wrong one. So it's scale. And then I'm going to give it 1%. So as you can see now, what that has done is basically shrunk the entire row to 1% of its original size. So what it's doing is being hidden behind that button now. So if I, set it back to, 100%, you can see it appear. But I'm just going to set it to 1%, and then I'm going to toggle off that transform scale with that click functionality of the button. Basically, I'm going to say when this button is clicked, I'm going to take out this 1% transform scale, and it's going to go back to the default 100%. All right, I hope that made sense. Let's continue on, and now the last step is just to add some custom code to make this work. So basically, the beauty of this is that we get to design, all of this in Divi, add some cool hover effects designs and all that, and then we can, combine it with some custom, CSS and a little bit of jQuery to finalize the functionality. It's kind of like a best of both worlds here to get the functionality we want, but also, use Divi to design the most of it. So that's good. I do have some custom CSS I need to add, and I'm actually going to add it to the page settings. So over here, I'm going to, can't really see my menu. Bring it to the right side. Click my gear icon here, open up page settings, go to my advanced tab, go to custom CSS, and this is where I'm going to paste in my custom CSS. Just to kind of give you a picture of what this is. This is also available on the blog post. So if you need this, it's all there, ready to be copied and pasted into your page settings. But this is the CSS. And one thing I do want to note here about this is that right here for the row that contains all of our menu items, I have a font size here as 14. Now, the cool thing about that is I can increase and decrease that font size. And because I've sized all of the menu elements, well, most of them, with the EM length unit, I can just change, or whenever I increase the font size for this row, I actually increase the size, it scales the size of the actual menu. Let me see if I can get show you what I mean, because this is important if you're going to be using this. Let me save out my settings. So I have my CSS added there. And let me go ahead and add my jQuery code first before I go ahead and show you what I mean with that font size. So I'm going to come back to that. Let me add my jQuery to the code using a code module. So I'm going to go back to my wireframe view mode. You can add it anywhere. I'm just going to add it underneath blurb 6 here. It's not going to take up any space. Just going to add the code here. And what this is going to do is give me my functionality. So when I click on that button, it's going to toggle on and off that transform element to show and hide the menu. All right. Let's save that. And let's go ahead and check out what it looks like on the live page. All right, so let's go ahead and test it out. So it's looking good. And I don't know if you noticed, but the plus sign rotates into an X on the button there to kind of an additional kind of user UIs or UX element there, micro animation. And let's go back and let me show you what I mean in regards to the transform, or I'm sorry, resizing our menu button with the CSS there. So I'm going to go, we're basically done, so we have it all ready to go. But let me show you how to resize it. I'm going to go to page settings. Let's go ahead and bring it over here. And I'm going to, actually, sorry about that. Let me go to my row first. So I'm going to go to wireframe view, open up my row settings that contains all my blurbs. And I'm going to go to my transform option here. And I'm going to set it back to 100% just for the moment. So I'm going to save that, toggle my desktop view mode. That's just so I can see it on the visual builder. Now I'm going to go to my page settings, go to my advanced custom CSS, and you see the, I don't know if you can see it. Let me increase it a bit. I'm going to bring it back over here. There's my font size, and this has transform is targeting my row. So if I change this to 15, you can see my menu starts to scale to a larger size. And that's kind of the beauty of using those EM length units, which are dependent on the font size. So you get a picture of that. And then you can go in and change the icon and the link text separately on different devices because those aren't being used, or the EM length unit isn't being used on the icon and the title text there. So set it back to 14 pixels. But in the CSS for the mobile or tablet and phone, I actually decreased the font size to 10. And that'll make it a little smaller and mobile friendly as well. All right, so let's save that out. Go back to my row and add my transform scale back to 1%. And I think we're good to go. Last thing I want to do is add a pre-made layout. So let's go ahead and do that quickly. So I have I'm opening up my load from library pop-up here, and let's go ahead and find which one did I use? Oh yeah, the the psychologist layout pack. I'm going to use let's just use the landing page there. So I don't want to replace the existing content, so make sure that's not clicked because it'll erase everything we just built. So I'm going to click use this layout. All right, it's loading up. Let's close my menu. All right, and let's save it. Let's check out what it looks like on the live page. All right, there you go. There's my menu down here. And it looks like it's staying above all the content as I scroll, which is nice. And if let's see what it looks like on mobile. Let me just go ahead and toggle it like that. All right, so there's my mobile display. And there you go. Okay. Let's see if I have any questions before we wrap things up. Thanks for being patient there. All right. Very good. Jake says this is dead sexy. Okay. Glad you like it. Very clever how the transform options are used. The result is very nice. Yes, thank you. I'm glad you liked it. Hopefully it will be useful for you on your next build, or want to get creative with a new menu. Actually use it in a completely different way if you want. You can actually build a pie chart or something. I don't know, it has a bunch of different use cases or uses that you can think about doing, like an infographic or something. You can expand on this concept, or you can actually just continue to add more blurbs in 30-degree increments and complete the entire circle and use this as a custom menu or something else on your site without, positioning it at the bottom or whatever. All right. All right, I think I've taken up enough of everyone's time today. Thanks for hanging with me today. All right, that's all I got for you this week. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Please be sure to subscribe to our blog newsletter, our YouTube channel, and like us on Facebook. That way you don't miss out on any future live streams or freebies that we release every week. Our next Divi use case live stream will be next Tuesday, even though it was a bit different today. It was on Wednesday, but it should be next Tuesday at 3 p.m. Eastern. Also, our very next live stream is this Friday, and that's the weekly WP Roundup. So you want to check that out on Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern. And also don't forget to check the video description for more information on how you can contribute to our Elegant Themes blog. So you want to check that out as well. I've included a link in the video description. Thanks again, guys, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.